10 Minutes to Joy is your weekly invitation to reset, recharge, and rediscover your most joyful self through aha moments and simple energy techniques. You're listening to holistic psychotherapist Sylvia Plester-Silk. I've worked with individuals, couples, and groups from parole officer to private practice. I've learned many a lesson, and I'm ready to share. I had a friend whose husband on a regular basis would ask me, Sylvia, is there anything you're not good at? It was a compliment. He admired that I had so many skills. I'm a relatively good cook. I'm a great baker. I can do projects, renovation projects in a home. I can decorate. I'm a pretty darn good therapist and energy facilitator. Huh. So, what was he getting at? That maybe it isn't such a great pattern that I hold. Now, remember, patterns are created in a moment. They're created in our subconscious in response to some kind of experience. And they're a combination of thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. And they get wound up in our subconscious, and then it becomes part of our operating system. There's more on in my book, Healing is Possible, available worldwide on Amazon. So I think actually the not so fabulous pattern, highly adaptive pattern at the same time, is my personal pattern of self-reliance. When I was 13, my last sisters moved out of the house. I was the only female, and I grew up in a very male-female dominated house where females had certain roles and males had certain roles, and the two shall never cross. So all of a sudden, I became the one who had to help my mother, or when my mother went away for periods of time, I had to do all the housework, including the cleaning and cooking and so on. I learned to be so independent as a child that I now struggle sometimes to ask for help. I mean, it's gotten much better over the last 10 years, 15 years. But for years, it was like, okay, I just need to figure this out. At 5, I taught myself how to ride a bicycle because I was feeling like a tricycle was too immature and I had to figure this out. And my siblings had no interest in teaching me, no desire. And so I conquered that. I learned mega early that the one person in life that I could 100% rely on was me. Hmm. Okay, so that sounds kind of good, right? Like it helped me be really, really able-bodied and be able to do lots of things and study and figure things out. Hmm. But it gets bloody lonely from time to time when I think I have to figure out all my stuff on myself. And I may not even know the things to consider in making the decision. Yes, many of us go to AI now because somehow AI is trustworthy and people aren't. Okay, there's a bit of a distortion of a pattern if I ever saw one. I don't think I'm alone in this. I think many of us have learned to trust ourselves at the exception of others because of the households we grew up in. Perhaps we felt that we didn't matter, that people didn't care about us. And for some people, it was like, I'm not going to eat if I don't figure this out. I think back to novels I've read about the children, the pauper children, I'll call them, because often in those time frames, that's what they were referred to, that would steal in order to feed themselves and younger siblings. Okay, I didn't do that behavior, but I kind of stole from myself through a lot of my life because I often would wonder, why does that person get so much more support from this coach in a group coaching situation than I'm getting? Because I had learned to project a persona, a pattern that I didn't need help, that I had it all figured out. In keeping on that pattern for so long, I stole a lot of support from myself. But I think the subconscious belief and big part of the pattern was people aren't trustworthy. You can't rely on other people. That makes my heart very sad as I talk about it today. How did I learn to trust other people? I learned slowly. I started to get some really strong, powerful, loyal friends. And even when I played my games, they didn't go away. And when I say play games, it wasn't like I was entirely trying to be intentionally gamey or anything. It was just my pattern playing out. But they stuck around and they stuck with me. And I actually started to learn that the feedback that they were giving me wasn't negative and criticism like it would have been in my family, but it was growth oriented. And it was came from them from a deep, deep desire to support me. And I started to be able to take it in. And of course, along the path, I did a lot of work around trusting other people and clearing the patterns and clearing the patterns and clearing the patterns. So probably it was about 10, 15 years ago that I started to see evidence of my work. And what I've learned is that in a group situation, you'll find me sitting back quietly observing before I participate. I need some time to warm up and check out and sense whether is this a safe group for me. And then I chime in pretty thoughtfully and carefully. Why am I talking about this today? Why am I just disclosing parts of myself that have been less than ideal? Because if you're struggling with this pattern, it will be often so subconscious you just don't realize it. You just think you're really super able, and bloody hell you are. And there's a downside to it. I encourage you to check your gut and who's in your life that has been loyal, who hasn't gaslit you, who's been able to support you and give you feedback in a loving way, who's offered to help you and actually meant it, who's shown up for you in those hard times. Start to look for evidence and start to notice, how do you push them away? I ghosted people. I just stopped calling. And I'm not recommending that as a pattern of behavior. I'm just saying that's one of the ways this over-reliance on ourselves can happen. If you're super good and you sort of study and you watch things until you figure stuff out on your own, you might have a bit too much of this self-reliance as well. So looking at how can you move from over self-reliance to being interdependent in a healthy way with people is looking at your patterns. Again, I'll refer you to my book, Healing is Possible, the 10 things you need to know to heal, to help you look at. It's got lots of great exercises, and the accompanying workbook journal also has it. And by accompanying it, you buy it separately. But it helps you. It's got exercises for you to go through and look at your patterning so that you can figure out what yours was. I know where mine came from specifically, but I don't think that's as important as looking at the overall pattern and helping you discern where yours came from. And then helping you work through it. And again, there's a master's pattern program process in my book that you can work through to get to the other side of this. And you deserve to, because it's really cool when you can reach out to somebody and just text them and say, hey, do you have like 10 minutes today or 15 minutes or half an hour today? I'm just needing some help with something. And then you can feel like you can be open because it's so cool now that I have so many relationships where I trust and I can just say where I'm really at. And the other person hears me, respects me, and doesn't try to deny or minimize where I'm at. They'll support, they'll sometimes challenge, but in a loving way. And that's where I can grow and become interdependent in that super healthy way where I can sometimes make decisions on myself, sometimes ask for feedback, but knowing myself and knowing that it's okay to ask for help and that in fact is a strength. I leave you this to ponder this week. What pattern of over self-reliance maybe isn't needed anymore in your life? What part of that might be outdated? And if you're ready to change, then let's have a look at what are those patterns. And if you're in the province of Ontario, Canada, you might want to reach out and look at my website and reach out to me about doing some work together. And because I'm actually another really powerful thing is I'm really good at looking at patterns and seeing where they come from and helping you get to the bottom of it and release it. Have a great week. That's all for today. Remember, your past doesn't need to define your future. You get to choose. Keep moving forward, and we'll see you next week on 10 Minutes to Joy.